So
Okay.
my name is Natalie, and I'm a writer and contributor for the Punks, which is a music publication intended for people in the music industry to connect, learn, and grow together. And joining me today is musician Rachel Bochner. Would you first like to introduce yourself and tell us how you got started with music?
Okay. Well, as you just said, I'm Rachel Bochner. I'm an indie pop musician based in New York City. I originally got started in the industry kind of on the other side of things. I thought that I wanted to work at a label as an A&R. So kind of took a little bit of a shift at some point, but back in 2018, in the summer, I had an internship at a label where I was doing A&R and got to learn a ton about the industry kind of from that angle. And over that summer was also kind of when I started to write more seriously. And basically it kind of all fell into place for me that I wanted to be pursuing a music career of my own as opposed to being an A&R for people. So that's kind of where I shifted gears a bit. And ever since then, I've just kind of been focusing on writing and putting out music.
That's awesome. I actually want to do A&R. That's kind of what I'm going for. So that's cool that's
I mean, it's awesome. I feel like it's not for the faint of heart. Like it definitely takes a certain kind of person, but if you like love it and that's, you know, you're like very passionate about it, I think that it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So some of your musical inspirations include Lana Del Rey, Maggie Rogers, Julia Michaels, and Lorde. So what elements of these artists' music do you draw from when writing your own music?
So it's interesting because I feel like I am very inspired by all those people and other artists as well. But whenever someone's like, what do you think your music sounds similar to? I like don't really know if I have an answer. Which I feel like is a good thing in a way, because you obviously don't want to be replicating someone's sound. But I think that something I was really kind of like taken by with Lana when I kind of became a fan in high school was just like how beautiful and like dramatic her lyrics are. And I also really loved how she kind of created this persona and like really committed to it. But I don't think that my music really sounds like her, you know? But, and then when it comes to like Julia Michaels, I'm also really, you know, I love her writing. I think that she's an incredible songwriter. I mean, like objectively, she is an incredible songwriter. And I also think that she, in a similar way that I kind of try to do this, you know, she kind of melds this pop sound that's really catchy with like still very intimate storytelling. So I think that that's kind of a common thread among all of the artists that I feel really inspired by. Like, I think they all kind of do that. And, you know, I'm also a big Taylor Swift fan, and she's like the queen of storytelling. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Lorde's music has definitely evolved recently. I've been listening to her new stuff and then go back to her old stuff, and she's got a completely different kind of vibe going on, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really awesome that artists are able to do that and kind of like evolve and grow even when they are super established. Like you don't need to stay in the same kind of bubble. But yeah, I'm definitely like Melodrama is my favorite album from Lorde.
Yeah.
But this new album is also really cool. I think I just gravitate more towards the old stuff, but I also hate change. So that could contribute.
True. Yeah. No, I only really am super familiar with her older stuff, and then her newer stuff. I was scrolling through like top charts on Spotify and like recommended stuff that comes up, and I was like, I'll give it a listen, and it's just completely different.
Yeah, definitely.
Who is somebody that you've gotten the chance to work with who you've been inspired by, or somebody who you got kind of the chance to work with that you didn't think would ever happen?
Interesting question. So I think a big one is, so after I graduated college, I did this 2-week songwriting camp at NYU. And one of the people that was like help running it was this NYU grad named Darrow. And she is like this super cool, like she has pink hair, she plays the cello, she's like has like a bunch of tattoos, like just looks like a really cool person. And she was helping run the program. And so I was like, oh my God, this girl is like so talented and so cool. And so I followed her on Instagram and blah, blah, blah. And then like, I don't really, maybe like a year almost after the actual program, we started working together and like we wrote a little bit, and now she's like my main producer. So I think that's kind of a cool, like full circle little moment, just because coming out of college, doing that writing camp, I was like, I had no experience co-writing, and I was so nervous and like so intimidated by everyone. And so it's just kind of like, I've kind of looked back and laughed because we're close friends now. And I'm like, I was literally so scared of you. Like, but yeah, so that's definitely a cool one. And she's an amazing producer, writer, and she also has her own music out too. So she's definitely a person to check out if you haven't heard of her.
Yeah, I will definitely check her out. I have those experiences all the time. I go to Fredonia is predominantly music, and the music industry program is so big that like a lot of the students who are in the program are performers or have already established their own record labels. They produce and like that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I look at people and I'm like, I so want to be your friend, but I'm not going to talk to you because like I'm not that cool, you know? And so somebody will come up to me and be like,
but you are that cool. You just have to like own it. And I think something that I tried to kind of push myself to do, especially during quarantine, because I wasn't like meeting people and going out and doing things, was like just kind of getting over like feeling weird about it and like DMing people and just being like, hi, like I found your music, or like I, came across your profile however way, and like I think that you're really cool. Like, would you like to hop on a Zoom and like chat?
Yeah.
And it feels weird sometimes, but I've also met like a ton of really good friends and collaborators like through just cold DMing people.
Yeah.
And like you have to be prepared for it to not like work or not lead to anything, but sometimes it does, and it's like you just kind of have to own it.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that you're about to release a brand new single, but before we get there, I want to talk about some of your past releases. So a couple of my favorites include Purple, which was released in 2020, and Hating Myself in the Summer, which was released this year. Can you talk about a little bit about your favorite past release of your own? Maybe what the writing process was like, inspiration behind the piece, or anything else that comes to mind about it?
Sure. I mean, all of the songs that are off of this upcoming EP, so Hating Myself in the Summer is included in that. I'm really excited about. I think I do tend to kind of get most excited about whatever's coming next. And Ghosted My Therapist is like, I think just a hilarious and like really relatable song. So I'm super excited for that to come out. But other releases that I think are really meaningful to me, definitely Ultraviolet. That is a song that I wrote in like, oh my gosh, last summer, I guess, and like in the thick of quarantine. And it was kind of a song that I used to help figure out like questions I was having about my identity and my sexuality. And I think it's really, really cool that you can use music to kind of like understand yourself better. So I think that song will always have a special place in my heart. But I mean, the 2 a.m. EP was a really, really just fun project in general, because it was the first project that I had worked on. It was basically like a way to like keep busy and like not go crazy during quarantine as well. So I think that whole EP, I have a soft spot for too.
Yeah, for sure. How did you stay connected with your fans and your art during quarantine? Was it a lot of mostly writing by yourself, or did you do any like Instagram live type of stuff? I know some people were doing like making videos or making little going live on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. What were you doing? Anything like that?
I did like a handful of like streaming streaming shows. There was like a festival like on Instagram live, and like takeovers for different Instagram accounts. So I think that was definitely a huge way to kind of like keep involved and stay connected. But I also think that towards the end of like all of that, I mean, we're still kind of in the midst of everything, but obviously like live shows are coming back. So towards the end of like the live stream era, I guess everyone was kind of sick of it. So you could kind of see like the excitement in the beginning kind of was like tapering off. But it was still a really great way to kind of practice, because I hadn't done like a proper live show pre-COVID. So I did my first live show a couple weeks ago. So, you know, doing like those live stream shows, it was kind of like a nice way to ease into it. And then I actually like, I did most of my writing like with other people just on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. So I think, you know, that kind of opened up a way to work with people who aren't, you know, in your same state or city or time zone, which is really cool. And I hope that that kind of continues a little bit, even though in-person sessions obviously are going to be the norm again.
Yeah. It definitely opens up more opportunities, but it's also like, how long can you sit and stare at somebody on a screen before you are like, more than that? But it definitely has been a good, like for me, I've met so many people by doing this. So, and I have a radio show.
Cool.
And so when I do that, it's opened up opportunities for me to feature more people because I can call them and pre-record interviews. So it's been helpful in some ways, but I am also missing like actually sitting down with people in a studio and talking to them for sure.
Absolutely. I feel like you need a good balance of the two.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So continuing on with your past releases, a couple of your past pieces have music videos to accompany them. And I just want to know about your experience working on a music video. So what was this creative process like? And maybe how is it different from your songwriting process? And if there are any similarities, what were those like as well?
I think a similarity is that it's also like a collaborative experience. A lot of my writing is co-writing. So like, you know, you're kind of bouncing ideas off of another person or two other people and like kind of combining brain power to like create this product. So I guess like I've kind of had two different experiences, and for music videos, like for 2 a.m. and Ultraviolet, that was like a much more involved kind of like lots of planning and like kind of like pre-production going into it. And then for Hating Myself in the Summer, it was like very spontaneous. I basically like ordered this Barbie car and I hit up my friend Alex, who is like photographer, videographer. And I was like, do you want to film this music video for me? Like in a Barbie car, like riding around the suburbs. And she was like, yeah, when do you want to do it? And I was like, do you want to do it in 2 days? And she was like, okay. So, you know, those were definitely two very different experiences, but I think like both work. I think like people just have different ways of working. And so they were all a lot of fun. The first video that I filmed was the 2 a.m. video. So I think it was like a little bit nerve-wracking trying to figure out how to be in front of a camera and like not be weird. But you know, as you just get more experience doing that and you know, just more comfortable in general, it becomes more natural.
For sure. Yeah. I love them both. I watch them all the time. I was checking everything before when I got the email. I was like, I'm going to go look at everything. They're great. They're wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
So your
of course, your new single titled Ghosted My Therapist will be released tomorrow, September 2nd. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this piece? Maybe who did you work with on it? And what was the inspiration behind it?
Sure. So I wrote Ghosted My Therapist with two of my close friends who I write with a lot. Their names Sasha Campbell and Anik Blaze. Actually met them at that NYU songwriting camp that I was talking about. So they've been collaborators of mine for a while. And we wrote it a little while ago, so it was still done over Zoom. But basically, like, we had this session scheduled and I came into it and I was like, I'm feeling like super blocked creatively. I don't really know what to write about. And it was kind of stressing me out. And because they know me, you know, like as my friends, they were like, okay, let's like kind of take a step back and, you know, you don't need to take yourself so seriously. Like, let's just have a fun session that like doesn't really matter. So something that I joke about to them is how I ghosted a therapist. And we were like, that's just a really funny title for a song and like a good concept. So let's just kind of run with that. So like it was a joke song basically.
Yeah.
And it was just like me picking things about myself to like roast a little bit and them kind of like feeding off of that. And as we were writing it, it just kind of turned into this like way to talk about how growing up is weird and like sometimes I don't feel like I know what I'm doing and it's kind of scary. And then by the end of it, I was like, okay, like I know that this was a joke at first, but I actually really, really love this song. So I wrote it with them, and then I took it to Tiger to produce. And something really cool about this specific project, so like the song that, or the EP that Hating Myself in the Summer and Ghost My Therapist are on, it was written, produced, mixed, mastered, and all the visuals have been worked on by women, like exclusively women. And that was just something that I really wanted to try and do for this project. So I think that's really cool to be able to say.
That is really cool. No, that's one of the main things that For the Punks talks about a lot is inclusion in the industry. So that's really awesome to hear, for sure.
Yeah.
How would you describe the overall sound of the song?
So for Ghosted My Therapist, I liked how it was like, it was kind of, it's silly, you know, like lyrically, it's very lighthearted. It's like meant to be funny. And I wanted the production to kind of match that energy in different ways. So like when you do, I don't know if you've heard it yet, but if you know, whenever you do listen to it, if you haven't yet, like there are little things in the production that are kind of just meant to be nods to that. Like while I was recording with Tiger, like I had an iced coffee and I like made her like record me like clinking around the ice and like taking a sip and being like, just to like have those little elements kind of like match and play off of the lyrics. And I think that it really is so funny to me. I don't know. But
I love it. I did hear it. I've heard it. Yes. And no, I was trying to pick out all the sounds and what they were. So it was, I loved it. It was great.
And then I don't know, it just was really fun to kind of go into it and be like, how can we like do like weird little funny things, you know? Because I think part of why the song felt so natural and like I loved it so much is because it kind of like pulled me out of that like, I'm like, I don't know what to write about. Like, I can't write anything like super deep and like amazing. Like, this is so frustrating. And it's like, you don't need to like think like that. You don't need to always be, you know, writing like cryptic, like beautiful and like prolific things. That's great if you do. But sometimes it can just be like funny and honest and like reflective of what you're feeling. And like, there's a line in the song that was like I graduated college, now I want to quit my day job. And I literally did quit my day job like a few days ago. So it's like, it's really, the timing is all very, very interesting.
Yeah. So I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I'll just write down little things throughout the day, and then I'll look at them later and I'll be like, squish them together, and that's a whole day's worth of song. Like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like, there are different, you know, songwriting can be like telling a story and like really creating like this world and being super creative. And then it can also be like, okay, how do I feel in this moment? And like, how can I literally just explain that, like this one emotion or whatever, this one problem, and just kind of like simply put it. And I think both of those routes are great.
Yeah, for sure. Where can our listeners and viewers of the publication find your music? Are you on Spotify, Apple Music? Where can we find your work?
I'm on whatever streaming platform you use, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon Music, Tidal, whatever it is, under Rachel Bochner. You can also find me on YouTube, and you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever if you want to stay connected, all under my name, Rachel Bochner.
Perfect. I do have a couple more questions for you before we wrap up.
Sure.
What advice would you give to young musicians or young people who want to enter the music industry in general?
I mean, it's always funny when in interviews, like I'm asked to give advice because I feel like I'm still figuring it out and I feel like not in the position to really be like telling anyone what to do. But I think something that's been really helpful to me is kind of what I mentioned before, just like, you know, being comfortable, just like reaching out to people and trying to network and just meeting people and starting those conversations and those relationships, because, you know, like it's never going to hurt to like know more people and work with more people and just kind of like learn from other people. So whatever part of the industry that you want to kind of pursue, I think it's, you know, it's only ever going to help to like reach out to people and try to learn from them and like see how they got there. You know, and if you're kind of going a more creative route in music, like just working with a bunch of people and like listening to a lot of music and like just kind of putting yourself out there in that way to make those new connections, because I think that's been something that has been so helpful for me.
Yeah, for sure. And coming from, I mean, for me, I have always kind of been an outgoing personality, so that stuff doesn't bother me. I emailed Ryan Seacrest when I was 10 and asked him if I could be on his show. So I've kind of always been an outgoing person, but I know that it's not easy for everyone, but definitely it's been great to just be able to, you know, kind of
so on that note though, because that's hilarious, but like I think sometimes if you shoot too high and you don't get a response, like, you know, you're going to be frustrated, but it's like, especially when you're starting out, like you don't need to DM like Ariana Grande and expect her to respond to you. It's like, find the artists and the creatives that are kind of at a similar like spot that you're in. And I think that those are kind of the best like places to start, because one, you're going to get a response, and two, like you get to kind of grow together and there's like no weird like power dynamic.
Exactly.
You know?
No, I'm guilty of doing the same thing. I mean, you can probably see I have Ariana Grande sitting right there. I did have a fan page on Twitter for Ariana Grande when I was in middle school.
As you should.
So I've been there. She's noticed me on Twitter a couple of times, but she has no idea who I am.
I love how much she interacts with the fans though.
I so badly wanted her to know who I was, and she has no idea who I am. But yeah, there are other people in the industry who do know who I am. They're just not Ariana Grande. So it does work out.
One day it'll happen.
You know, I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping for. What was I? Where am I? Okay. What is the best advice you've been given? And who told you this piece of advice?
That's a really good question. I don't actually know who like told me this, or if it's just something that like from life and like different people I've picked up on, but I think something that's really important to remember when you're pursuing like an artist's career is that not everyone needs to like what you're doing. Like not every single person needs to be obsessed with the music that you're making and like, you know, like what you're creating. But as long as like you really love it and believe in it, like that should be enough to kind of like stand by it. Because everyone has different tastes and like music is so subjective. So as long as you really like have faith and love what you're creating, like that's all that matters. So if someone like is trolling on like a video or is like, this song sucks, like it literally doesn't matter, because they might think it sucks, but like 100 other people, it's their favorite song, you know? So I think again, I don't really know who like gave me that tidbit, but I think that's something that I just try to remind myself because, you know, I mean, there's music that I don't like. That doesn't mean that it's bad.
Exactly. No, and in such a competitive industry, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and get a bunch of negative feedback, because the
Yeah.
couple of people who do like your music can be the ones who carry you through. So
Yeah. And it is such a competitive industry, but I also like am a big believer that there's so much room for like any kind of artist and like an infinite number of artists, you know, because like I think it's easy to kind of get caught up and be like, I need to like be at the top and like I don't care like about other people's success, like I'm just focusing on myself. And yeah, you should be your own priority, but at the same time, I think it's just so much more productive to like support other people and like want to kind of like work collaboratively and like not want to put other people down because you feel like threatened by it, because there's so much room. Like you, how many artists do you think you listen to on a daily basis? Like a bunch, you know. It's not just one single artist. Like there's room for everyone to like find their fan base and like do well, I think. So it is really competitive, but I feel like it doesn't always need to like seep into your relationships in that way. Yeah.
for sure, it depends on it depends on who you're surrounded by. I feel like you could be surrounded by a group of people who think it's a big competition, but then you could also be part of a group where everybody kind of works together and lifts each other up. So, and that's the group that I'm part of here. And, you know, I feel like you're in a similar situation, which the industry needs more of that.
Yeah. It's just like, I think it's just so much more efficient to like uplift people along the way, because, you know, then people are going to want to return the favor. And like, I don't know. I think it's just a silly like idea to be like, I'm the only person that can succeed. Like that's simply not true.
No, I agree. So my last question is, what are your biggest goals for the future regarding your music?
I mean, biggest goals, like
short-term,
like
long-term, anything that
I like sold out world tour. Like, I think short term, I'm really excited that live shows are coming back in New York. I have a show tonight actually that I'm very excited for. So I think just like doing more shows, like, you know, and then expanding out of just doing shows in New York would be really, really awesome.
To Fredonia.
Yeah. I'll talk to you later about that. We can figure it out.
I can try to work something out. Town's like this, but I'll see what I can do.
But yeah, so like just doing shows, doing more shows, and kind of just like working on my like live set and like my presence on a stage, because it's still kind of new to me. Obviously just continuing to write more music and work on whatever is coming after this upcoming EP. And I just moved to New York like 2 months ago. I've always lived like outside of the city, but I just finally have an apartment now. So I'm excited to just like live my life and enjoy my life. And also, since I no longer have a full-time day job that I recently quit, just kind of like having all this time to commit to music, I'm just really excited to see where that leads.
That's awesome. I'm hoping that I can do that someday. I'm kind of over my minimum wage serving jobs, but
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously like, it's tough. I think like part of, you know, the inspiration of Ghosted My Therapist kind of comes from that like reality of, okay, I'm not in college anymore. Like I'm living on my own. I have rent to pay. Like, I mean, obviously in college you have expenses as well, but like it feels a little bit more real for me, at least.
Yeah.
Now.
You're also in New York City, and
everything is expensive.
And everything's expensive, and it's big. I'm in this tiny town.
Yeah.
I live with 5 people. I'm in this tiny town, you know.
Exactly. So, you know, it's like I kind of had to weigh the options, like, okay, I'm going to work for a bit and like save up money so that I don't necessarily have to keep this day job forever, because it is really hard to balance, you know, when you're trying to pursue music full time while also working full time.
Yeah.
It's like two full-time jobs, and like obviously you can do it because people do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was just ready to kind of make the switch.
No, that's awesome that you're able to do that. And if I can get to New York City, I will be coming to a show. I would love that.
Please do. Please do.
It's a long drive from here.
It is. It is.
Yeah. No, I'm from Syracuse, so
Okay.
it's a little bit better when I'm home. Easier to
Yeah.
get down there, but from here it's like 7 hours, I think.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and say we can table that. Maybe I'll have to coordinate a show a little bit closer to you. I don't want you driving 7 hours.
7 hours. You should. I mean, Buffalo is an option for sure.
That's great to know.
Well, I want to say thank you again for joining me. Remember to check out Ghosted My Therapist, which will be released tomorrow, September 2nd, on Spotify, Apple Music, and all other streaming platforms you might have. Be sure to follow Rachel Bochner on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Tidal, Spotify, or anything else at Rachel Bochner. And thank you all so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Of course.